Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's 60-minute presentation as part of the webinar series of Wednesday Rainmaking by the Women Rainmakers of the ABA Law Practice Division. To start today's program, I would like to introduce the chair of the webinar committee for the Women Rainmakers, Carol M. Bass. Carol joins us today from New York City, where she is a partner in the trust and estates practice at Moses and Singer. Thank you all for joining us. We'll now begin the webinar.
Thank you, Sasha, and thanks to all the rainmakers around the country who have chosen to learn more about best networking practices from our panel of successful women rainmakers. The mission of the ABA Women Rainmakers is to educate professional women about marketing and business development, to provide mentoring opportunities for members, and to provide networking opportunities to build personal and professional relationships. You can find up-to-date information regarding our initiatives and programming by visiting the ABA Women Rainmakers homepage. Today, we are fortunate to have a wonderful panel who, together with our speaker, will provide tips and insight on successful networking. Today's panelists are Brett Harris, Yeon Lee, and Vedia Jones-Richardson, and our speaker is Schiro Greenwald. Brett Harris is a business, nonprofit, and technology attorney. She is a shareholder with Wilentz, Goldman, and Spitzer, PA, with offices in New Jersey, New York City, and Philadelphia. She has a broad-based general corporate transactional practice and a focus on counseling nonprofit organizations, including establishing and maintaining tax-exempt status, compliance, and governance matters. She also has an emphasis on technology issues, including cyber preparedness and data security, and handles intellectual property matters, including licensing, trademarks, and copyrights. Yeon Lee is a partner with Mauck and Baker in Chicago. She focuses her practice in the areas of litigation, business, real estate, and trust and estates law. A better way to describe Yeon's practice is that she focuses on the areas of law that are of recurring importance to business owners and modern global families. She strives to be a trusted advisor and a zealous advocate for her clients with integrity and skill. In this manner, she serves as the family office for many of her clients with significant assets in the U.S. and other parts of the world. Vedia Jones-Richardson is a principal with Olive & Olive in Durham, North Carolina, and heads the firm's trademark, copyright, and transactional group. She is nationally recognized as an authority in the field of technology, computer and internet law, and is certified by the North Carolina State Bar as a trademark specialist. Vedia's breadth of experience in various industries, combined with her immersion in real-world business challenges, adds up to a unique skill set that she puts to work in helping her clients achieve their goals. In addition, Vedia is chair of the ABA Women Rainmakers Committee. Last but certainly not least is our speaker today, Schiro Greenwald. Carol is a business development, networking, and management strategist, trainer, and coach. She works with professionals and professional service firms to structure and implement targeted practical programs built around clients and client service. Her book, Strategic Networking for Introverts, Extroverts, and Everyone in Between, forms the basis for training and coaching programs that link strategic networking activities with both personal and firm goals. Thank you all for joining us today. We are excited to learn more about networking and how women lawyers do it better. And now I'm going to turn it over to Carol.
Thank you. Okay, so come on. So when you get this, you'll be able to read all of our bios. So the agenda for this part, for this webinar is 3 parts. The first part is on networking itself, so we all have a common definition of it, and on strategic networking and how that differs from random acts of lunch. The second part is on some effective techniques that you might have forgotten. And the third is on, do women network differently? And you'll see whether we think so or not. Whoops, sorry, let me go back. Whoops. Okay, so networking itself is pretty simple. It's a tactic for moving towards your goals. And you do that by building relationships that eventually become trust-based and help other people as other people help you. It's basically a way to make friends. It's a way to create referrals, to create clients, to develop resources that you need, that your clients need. It's a way of building your reputation. It's a way of taking charge of your career, because by meeting people in various areas, you can see what you might want to do later. And it enhances your personal knowledge in many ways. And the final thing about networking is that as you make friends, it becomes a lot of fun. Strategic networking is about thinking of networking time as an investment. You might not get, a one-off right away. The first person you talk to may not become a multi-million-dollar client. I'm sorry about that, but actually you really wouldn't want it to, because then you would miss the fun of getting to know them and of building a relationship with them that is bigger, more important, and more useful than just being a client. So what makes it strategic is focus. You could go in 1,000 directions, but you don't have enough time. So what you probably want to do is pick some area of your practice that you really like, with people that you really like, doing work that you really like, and focus your process for networking on that. Because then you will be able to take the time and gain the knowledge to make those long-term relationships. You also want to work with people that you like and admire. Nobody wants to work with people that they don't like. Why would we? And those are probably going to be people who share your values, share your interests, and hopefully are in this target market you've set on. So networking itself, it really can be wonderful. Lately with COVID, we've been reading all these articles about how to cope. But if you have people in your network that you're close to, they can help you keep your emotional balance. So strategic networking has 4 parts. Plan what you want to do. Within that plan, find a focus. Within that focus, find a target, and then get moving. So the plan. When was the last time you thought about where you want to be in 6 months or 1 year? Or, I know this is hard for lawyers, but think about it, 5 years. Because you want to be doing things now that build towards where you want to be when you're 40, when you're 50, when you're 30, when you're 60, so that it's not a big surprise when you get there one day and find out what you're doing. You want it to be something that you've thought about and are working on. Then what kind of firm of clients you want, what you want to be known for, where you want to be known, etc. These are all things to ask yourself so that networking goes where you want it to go. You want to build a network that's comfortable for you and useful. Comfort is compatible people. Useful is having opportunities to refer and be referred, to focusing and getting to know the people on your list. I always say that every target market has 3 words that you need to learn so that you can be part of their market. And then credibility. There is nothing better than having people know you before you know them. Your strategy, again, is about targeting, finding a niche that works for you, and then creating in your mind a target persona. You might also want to write it down. And that target persona will be the kind of person that you want. You'll be telling yourself what they do for fun, what they do for work, what their buying habits are, what their triggers are for needing lawyers. And then everything you do in networking, all of the marketing that goes with it, should be targeted to that person. Where they go everywhere. And where you want to go is to follow them. So there are networking groups that are in your neighborhood, in your state. There are professional associations like ABA. There are trade associations like the Real Estate Trade Associations or the Manufacturers Association or the Biochemical Association or the Pharmaceutical Association or the PTA or the associations for divorced women, or all of them. There are something like 9,000 interest groups in America that are listed as interest groups. There's probably more than that. And then there's all the local community groups. There's peer advisor groups where you meet with people like you and share answers to questions that you have. And for us, of course, there are women's groups, just like there are men's groups. And women often like to work with other women, so it's important to know about them. You want to find them online and in person, because someday we will go back. See the rainbow? The rainbow is to remind us we will go back to in person. So now let's turn to our panel discussion, and I'm going to stop this so you can see the panelists. And there they are. And now let's just talk about this. So welcome all of you. I'm so thrilled that we'll be able to share some thoughts on what we've been doing. So many people think you don't need to be strategic about networking, that you know, it'll just come, it'll happen, and isn't that a wonderful thing? I don't have enough time to think that way, but I'm wondering, Brett, what do you think are the rewards that come from being a little strategic and thinking about it? You have to unmute, please. Would all
so interestingly, I don't like to think of myself as being a strategic networker, because to me, and what you'll find today, I think I'm honored and thrilled to be on this panel, and I love Carol's ideas and the plan and the focus. To me, that's incredibly intimidating. And to me, when I started out in thinking about how would I build my practice and how would I advance my career, and I thought I need all this structure. And for me, the strategic is the authentic and the natural. If you're going to, if you have the bandwidth, if you have the desire to, and if you're organized and you want to set it up of what organizations are you going to join and where are your clients going to be and where your referral source is going to be, that's great. But it doesn't have to be in that organized or regimented way. If I'm a very social person and I like to connect with people, and I have developed my practice and identity as, in fact, if it shows on the screen, I try and use this business, nonprofit, and technology attorney. That's what I do. That's kind of my practice and who I am. And so if I am interested in things relating to what I do each day in my practice, those are the associations I've become involved with. And I think when setting up a plan and a strategy, you have to be realistic. If you look on a list of associations and say, well, this is where my potential clients are going to be, and you have no interest in those people, and you have no interest in that association, and you go to a meeting and you stand there and you think people are going to hire you because you're a lawyer, that's not how it works, or not at least how I found it works. So to me, I just think that being strategic is being consistent in who I am, in what my practice and personality are, and letting the connections develop from there.
Thank you. I think that's true. I don't think you have to be straight-laced about a plan, but you do have a plan. You have 3 very different areas of practice, and you have 3 very different sets of people that you work with in each of those practices. That's a plan, but I won't tell you that because you won't like it. So forget that.
No, I agree. I just mean, don't be intimidated by thinking. People shouldn't be intimidated thinking that they need to have such a formal plan.
Oh, I agree with that. So part of networking is you got to have people to network with. Vedia, how did you build a contacts list?
Well, you know, I wouldn't necessarily say that I built a contact list. I think, you know, in today's social media environment, it tends to gamify the way we build contacts. You know, it's all about the numbers, and when you go into LinkedIn, it will tell you how many contacts everybody has, and you try to collect them and beat the other person. But, you know, I think it's important to remember that the quantity of your connections does not equal the true connection and true quality of those connections. So I don't accept every invitation to connect. You know, I take the time to look at what people are saying about themselves, and if it's a LinkedIn connection, for instance. And even when I meet people in person, I take the time to get to know who they are and figure out how I can connect with them personally. But I don't think I'm that selective in a way of saying, you know, you should be my contact and you should not. I think there are so many different ways that people can be important to you over time, and you, of course, important to them also. So I think it's important to let those relationships grow organically and take your time with them, and understand who you are dealing with, and let them understand who you are too. And over time, you'll find ways to be connected with them. You know, I think sometimes, you know, I have a son who's like a Rubik's Cube Jedi, and he told me that the way you get to line up all of the squares on a Rubik's Cube is not just by turning it to the direction that you want it to go in and lining everything up. You usually have to move things around several times in different directions before, and move them back again before they line up, you know, where you want them to be. And that's, to me, a lot of the way networking is. Sometimes you have to go through several different phases of a relationship before you wind up getting to a point where, you know, that connection makes sense in terms of, you know, why it's important or why it's valuable.
That's great.
Also, I guess, like chess, you know, you kind of have different pieces, and each one has different moves and different purposes, and, you know,
that's what makes it fun, I think. But I think it gets us to another question. So, Yeon, why do you think it's important to target, and how do you decide who to target? There's so many pieces.
Targeting played a really important role in my career, because when I was a young attorney, I was not only just young, I was a woman, and I was a minority attorney. I had a lot to overcome to generate new business. So early on, when I didn't have my own credibility, my own reputation, I leveraged referring attorneys network. So I was a little bit strategic in that respect, because I didn't associate with other real estate attorneys or other litigators. I associated with immigration attorneys. I don't do immigration law at all. So we are not competing for clients. So their network became my network. And so early on, when I was beginning in my growth chart, that's how I leveraged my network and targeted referral sources. And also another thing to remember is the targeting idea is going to evolve over your career. So not only your experience, the substantive area is also going to be a determining factor. I started my career as a litigator, but then now I do real estate, I do trust and estate, I do business, I do tax, I do many different things. It kind of grew organically. But when I do litigation, my litigation clients are a little more general. But when I do work on real estate or trust and estate work, I specifically target for Korean clients, because I speak Korean language, and I can work with first generation parents in Korean language and second generation in English. That's perfect for many families. So that's how I target, and different credentials of myself come into play with different targets.
Okay, so that's great. So any of you have anything you want to add quickly to any of this? Brett?
Just what Vedia was saying, it's a long game. This is not a short endeavor. You don't kind of say, I mean, you can set short-term goals of being involved and going to certain events, but for people to refer matters to you or hire you, people don't always need a lawyer. When you go to a business event, not everyone in the room needs a lawyer. They're not involved in litigation. They might not have that need. So you have to kind of realize that these are the connections, and over time, when they do need a lawyer, or if you're dealing with other lawyers, when they need to refer a matter that's in your area of expertise, then they know you. But you have to kind of have that longer perspective.
Okay, thanks. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. And, okay. So, Come on. So now let's talk about a couple of techniques that you may not even realize are techniques. First of all, let's talk about body language. To me, the most important thing that you do is body language, because 93% of what people think about you comes from your body. 58% comes from visual, 37% from vocal, and only 7%, unfortunately, for those of us who love writing and words, comes from the words that come out of your mouth. And so it's really important to think about your body language. So the most important parts of it are on the slide here. Smiling is really important. It's the way in which humans connect with each other. And if you smile at someone, they will smile back at you. We always do it. It's involuntary. You can always tell if it's a real smile, because in real smiles, your eyes crinkle, your cheeks move up, and your lips move out into a smile. In a fake smile, only your lips move. And so you can tell when a person is being kind or a person is being welcoming. The eyes are really important because, you know, we say eyes are the way to your soul, but they also are what regulate conversation. They also are how we know that somebody is paying attention to us and is listening to us. In fact, the secret of Jackie Kennedy and Bill Clinton's charisma was their eyes. They never stopped looking at the person they were talking to. And so for that 30 seconds or 60 seconds that you were shaking their hand in a line of 500 people, you thought that they knew you. And it was a very friendly, welcoming kind of thing. And many of the best people in terms of conversations are people who know how to pay attention to the person that's speaking, so that the person who's speaking feels validated and recognized. It's a wonderful skill. But even if you don't know how to do that, look at the person you're talking to, pay attention. And in a conversation, it's eyes that regulate who talks. We always wonder, you know, how does conversation move naturally? When we're together physically, your eyes and your upper body usually do it by leaning in, leaning back, pausing, those kinds of things. So, and then your eyes also flicker when you talk, so that they moderate the speed of a conversation. Now, at the moment, unfortunately, on video, we don't get to see people speak too often unless they forget where the camera is pointing. But in real life, I just want to give you a hint that's kind of fun, and that is feet always go the way your brain wants to go. Always, ever since the days in the savannah. Feet are really important. So if you see a group of people talking together and you wonder if you should go over and talk to them, if all their feet are facing each other, it's a good conversation. You might want to go. If one or two of them have their feet facing out, that conversation is ending. Those people are moving on. It's going to break up the minute you get there, and it's not about you. Now, we don't know where their feet are sending them. We just know that they're sending them somewhere. So we can't go any farther, but it is kind of a hint. And it's also fun when you're at an event or at a meeting. Works under the table too. Of course, you have to drop a piece of paper so you can lean down and pick it up. But, you know, a little casual there, a little subtle, but you can still do it. So here's a really important thing. When you walk into a meeting, the first thing you have to do is say to yourself, I'm going to like this. I'm going to find someone to talk to that I really want to talk to. I'm going to see a couple of friends that I didn't know were here, or that I called ahead of time to make sure they were here. You're going to stand tall. You're going to put your head above your shoulders. You're going to stand up like your mother taught you. You're going to put a smile on your face. Whether you, and this is even on video, you're going to sit tall. And what you're doing is you're saying to your brain, okay, it's time to go in and be assured, be a leader, talk about interesting things. Come on, brain, you can do it. And your brain will, because it sees there's this mind-body connection. And what you're saying to the brain is, come on, it's time to go in and talk to people that we really want to talk to and show off our best selves. Now, women tend to use body language to project confidence. Women also use body language to overcome unconscious bias. And by that, I mean, we do what's called mirroring. We mirror the way in which other people that we're with are standing, sitting, talking, whatever. And when we do that, people tend to see us as similar. So if you were sitting in a meeting with your boss and your boss crossed their legs, you would cross your legs if it was a meeting where you were both talking and it was friendly. If you're standing and talking to people and they're slouching, you're probably going to slouch. So it's important, though, to remember that by standing tall, you are projecting competence and confidence, two things that you want. Then there's also the Wonder Woman pose. Now, I don't suggest you wear the Wonder Woman outfit. This is not going to work too well for a lawyer, but the expansive pose can help. So Wonder Woman always stands with her legs apart. Watch her, she looks like a triangle. There's a new movie coming out. We can all watch it and learn from her. And that expansive pose, again, tells your brain that you're feeling powerful and you're feeling in control of this. And then, of course, you want to wear clothes that will capture the positive preconception of what a woman professional looks like. The next thing about it is conversation. You know, everybody says, oh, I don't know what to say. If I go there, I don't know what I'll do. I don't like talking to people I don't know. Well, the only way to get to know people is to talk to them when you don't know them. So it kind of gets to be a little difficult there. But just remember this the mantra, and it's an IBM mantra, actually. Everybody likes to buy. Nobody likes to be sold to. We all do that. We all want to make our own decisions about what we buy. But if what you're trying to do is create a relationship with someone, then you're not selling to them. You're talking to them about things and areas where you can provide value, where you can help them to get where they want to go. So instead of saying to people, you know, all the wonderful things about you and all the degrees and all of the awards you have, talk to them about why people work with you. What's the benefit of it? What can I get from that? So find common experiences, find shared interests, ask open-ended questions. If you say to somebody, did you like the speaker? What's the answer to that? Yes or no? But if you say to somebody, did you expect the speaker to say that about interest rates? You're going to get an answer about interest rates, and it will be the beginning maybe of an interesting conversation about finances. Also, when people listen to conversation, they always give the most attention to the first three things you say. So make sure that what you say in the beginning of a conversation is positive, is present tense, and is your best material. It's interesting kind of thing. And finally, if you're a lawyer, don't use lawyer jargon unless you're talking to another lawyer. Because the minute that a human, that's non-lawyers, the minute that a human hears a word they don't understand, they stop listening. And then there's the 2 ears, 1 mouth rule. That's for everybody, and that is God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you would listen twice as much as you talk. It's not always easy to do, but, you know, kind of encourage other people to join in with you. Follow-up is really important. If you go to a meeting, it's not going to last. You're not going to remember what people said more than a couple of days. You may not even remember all the people that you met. But if you take the time to write down what you learned about them in your Outlook and wherever you keep your contacts, if you write a thank you email to someone saying, thank you for the time we spent together, I really enjoyed talking about copyright, because I write a lot of things and I don't know what I can say is mine and what I can't, then that person will remember you. And not only that, they'll know that the email was for them and not, it's a cut and paste email for everybody. If you promise to send something, send it. If you want to link with them, or you promised you would, link with them on LinkedIn. If you think that you want to get to know them better, then figure out what kind of date you want to have with them next. These are things you would do in person, but you can also suggest coffee in the morning and do a Zoom meeting. You can suggest a 3 o'clock tea time phone call, that kind of thing with people. But you want to follow up with them if you want them to remember you.
Carol, can I just mention something to make sure people know on LinkedIn? When you connect to people, you can do a personal note. And what I try and do is write, "It was great to meet you at the, conference, the nonprofit conference today," or something like that. And then that way, if they don't look at it right away, they will make that, it'll remind them who you are. And then that stays in the LinkedIn communication. So later on, when you look at your LinkedIn connections, you can see your message exchange with the people. So I try and use those little notes.
And not only that, you can see the first day where you met them. Because I don't know about you, but the months all mushed together and I can't always do that. But when I look, I can see where the first time was that I saw them. And don't be afraid to throw some of them away. To have taken a card from someone, and when you think about it, it's not relevant for you. As Vedia said, you don't want to link with everybody who wants you, because there's no point. And I also don't link with anybody I don't know. So, because when people look at you on LinkedIn and look at your contacts, they think that you have chosen them and that it says something about you. So I don't want people who just want to sell to me. And there are, unfortunately, those people on LinkedIn as well. So conversation starters, you know what? They're conversations. They're the same kind of thing if you went to someone's house for dinner and you didn't know the other couple that was invited. You would say the same kinds of things. Now, if you're in a networking event, what you don't want to do, if you can help it, is say, "What do you do?" Why? Because it's boring. And there must be something more about the person than what do you do for a living. So I ask things like, what's your favorite fun thing to do? Or if I want to be boring but not ask about work, I say, why'd you come to this meeting? Have you ever heard the speaker before? So I go to a lot of them where they talk about how the brain works. But I'm a PhD. I'm not a medical doctor. It's just I'm interested in that. So when people ask me, I say, because I want to understand how the brain works. And then usually that gets into a discussion of what's a marketing person care how the brain works. So it's kind of fun. But sometimes I say to people, what was the best part of your day? In the old days when we were allowed to go out, I used to say, where'd you go on your last vacation? Because I've been to a lot of places and I like to compare notes with people about it. And the ask, that time when you want to turn a friend into a client. If you're friends, it's not going to be out of the blue. You're not going to say, so would you like to work with me? No, you're not going to say that because it's going to be awkward for both of you. You could say, so they have a problem and you say, so how can I help you? Let's think about this. This is what I'm hearing you saying. Can we do this together? Or if you're just getting to know them, but you know that there's going to be the kind of work you do down the line, you can say, I would love to find a way for us to work together. And a lot of people do after that is they say, I would love to do something for you, small something for you, and maybe do it for free, just so we can get to work together and see how we work. Usually turns into more work. But it will come out as a logical end of a conversation if you have taken the time to create a relationship with the person that you're talking to. It's not really scary. It's just kind of the next step. And now I'm going to ask the panelists to tell us why they don't think it's scary. So let me go back and get rid of my screen. Okay, stop share. there we are. We're back. So let's talk about this, because many people don't go to networking events because they're afraid that they'll be asked something and they don't know what to say. So Vedia, what do you say when you go to a networking event? And the other two, please unmute yourselves.
Well, I think it is important. The 2 ears and 1 mouth rule is, a lot of people worry when they're getting ready to go to an event what they're going to talk about and what, is their important point to make. And I think, it's always useful to me to first learn about the other person that I'm talking to, and open some open-ended questions, like you said, and find out what brought them to this event, or what they're interested in about the speaker or the organization or the activity, or just where they are in life. But if you can open that door and find a way to let them tell you a little bit about them, I think it's helpful to learn about that person, and through that determine what might be a point of connection for you. And a lot of times I'll try to do some homework before I attend the event to see who's going to be there, what it's going to be about. Maybe I may learn something about the companies that different people represent, and have something that I can talk about there in terms of what they're doing or what they're involved in or what interests me about them. But generally, I try to pull out things that I'm interested in and use that as a way to kind of deepen the conversation.
That's great. And Yeon, what do you do to follow up? I know that you take that seriously, and I'm just wondering, how do you do it?
Yeah, so follow-up is really important, but I want to say if you are the one who's initiating a follow-up communication first, then instead of cookie cutter message, only do it if you are ready to engage in a really meaningful conversation. And then also make it easy for the other person to respond. And so if you had a really good time with that person at an event, and if you already talked about getting together for lunch or coffee, then you can ask, like, is there any good time in the next couple of weeks or month? But if you didn't even talk about that, if all you did is just exchange a business card and asking for a lunch meeting, that can be a little intimidating for the other party to just respond.
Yeah.
And also, if you are on the receiving end, and I realize that as I get older and I get more experience, and had wearing more leadership hats here and there, I get more follow-up messages from younger attorneys who like to kind of form relationship with me. And I always try to respond promptly and remain very approachable, and also show genuine interest. And I am genuinely interested in them, and I am really honored that they thought that they want to learn more about me and want to work with me, and all of these things. And so one thing that I also wanted to add to Vida's is, before the pandemic, and once this pandemic is over, when we can go back to in-person meeting, one thing that I try to do every single time is just decide for yourself to have a good time. At a minimum, you're gonna have a glass of wine, good food, and you're gonna see a familiar faces or two. Just try to enjoy yourself. That's the number one thing. And then you will relax and you'll have a good time.
Okay.
So I completely agree with that. And when I go to an event, I just want to meet someone interesting. I want to have an interesting conversation or touch base with someone I know. And it doesn't have to be about work. It doesn't have to be about a new matter. People are interesting, and they do. Sometimes I connect with them. Sometimes we talk about the kids. Sometimes we talk about the town we live in. Sometimes we have nothing that's in common, and they tell me about something that I don't know or I've never done. And then it's interesting, and you're going through life. You got to make it worthwhile and interesting. So, I don't know. So the other thing I'll mention is, when we were going to events, and we will go one day to events again, I have faith, I try to remember or take notes. I have pens everywhere in my car. I sit in the parking lot before I leave, and I write on the back of people's business cards these kind of you know, half sentences of what we talked about.
Right.
Or I do this a lot. I will leave a voicemail message for myself on my drive home, which then when I come into the office in the morning, I think, oh God, I have a message. Who's on my phone? And then I realize it was just me as I'm driving, because I don't want to use my phone as I'm driving. So as I'm driving, I just leave a message saying, you talk to this person and they have a kid in college, and you talk to this person and her husband does this. And then I put it in their contacts, so it kind of helps me remember. And when I talk to them again, and people, so I tell people that because people are like, I can't believe you remembered how old my kids are. And I don't have to pretend that I completely remembered it, because I didn't have to memorize it. I just had to care enough to listen and then to write it down.
Right.
So,
okay. Thank you. No, that's great. And if you do what our experts here are saying, you'll have a good time. And if you have enough good times, you won't think you're networking. You'll think you're making friends. It's all the same thing. So here we go back just for the last segment. So see if it's going to move. Come on. Come on. Okay. Do women network differently? So I love this quote about Ginger Rogers that she said, women do it going backwards and in high heels. Everything that Fred Astaire did, right? So I love that. Now, some of you are going to say, how can I do this? And I'm going to tell you, it's because it's the truth. The stereotype today is still of a lawyer is a middle-aged man with graying hair and a blue or gray suit. It still is. We see it in sitcoms. We see it in various places when people get appointed to government positions. If they're a male lawyer, 9 times out of 10, they're middle-aged, etc. And so, as the ABA survey found out, female lawyers are not males with gray hair and blue or gray suits. So they are more likely than their male counterparts to be interrupted, mistaken for non-lawyers, asked to take on administrative, heads of administrative committees in law firms, and have a harder time getting to prime jobs. But that's the stereotype. The reality is the picture on the right of people of all colors, all genders, who have become lawyers. Now, the reason that the stereotype is important is because it becomes used as the base for how people are judged in terms of how they interact with other people. So, for instance, it's often said that when a man is assertive, they're being strong and assertive. When a woman is assertive, she's being abrasive or emotional. Just because we have different ways, perhaps, of talking. Sometimes when women are really just projecting power, they're seen as being angry or out of control. And the final thing about women versus men that I think the stereotype does is that women are looked at more in terms of what they're wearing. Rarely do you see anybody write an article about what a man is wearing. What does Trump wear as compared to what does Melania wear? That'll make the first page of the paper. And I do think, and I think that our panelists agree, that women do network differently. Women try and build close relationships. We're used to that. We're used to building families. We're used to building friends that, you know, I always say there's the family I have and there's the family I built of my closest friends. We're used to that. We're used to more social interactions. And what we do is we form that tight inner circle that Vedia talked about earlier, and we use them as a support group. But women are also hesitant to ask for business, and they tend to undervalue themselves so that they won't talk about themselves as much as they should because they're afraid that it'll come across as sounding, you know, conceited or whatever. On the other hand, men are always going for the transaction. They tend to build alliances. They tend to work in larger groups. They have an informal system. They basically learn it playing sports. and they bring that same relationship into their networking. They love to mix business and fun, and they assume that there's nothing wrong. If you want to work with someone, ask them. What the hell? Why not? You know, nothing wrong with that. And so these two often lead to the fact that there's a disconnect in terms of what people think the other person is saying. So we're going to go to the panel about this, but before that, what I want to tell you is be the kind of woman that when your feet hit the floor each morning, the devil says, oh crap, she's up. Because then you'll be in charge. You'll be in charge of your own life. And that is a very good feeling. So now I'm going to go back to the panel because I'm going to ask them some questions. And I'm on the chat page, so hold on 1 second. So I'm going to begin with Yeon. So how do you deal with stereotypes? And do you think that it makes it harder for women to do networking, or that it doesn't have an impact, or what?
Okay, so I want to share with one trick and then go into the question. So before you go to an event, and even in front of a Zoom, I put my jacket on, I have my smile necklace on. You know, when in doubt, just dress up. And I think that usually boosts your confidence and you feel like you're prepared. But being comfortable is key. So you don't want to be uncomfortable, you know, that kind of shows. So find your comfortable suit, comfortable armor, if you want to call it that. I have many stereotypes. I'm an Asian, I'm a woman, I look young. I guess I am young, but you know, I look younger than what my age is. And so all of those are kind of stereotype, and it was an obstacle for me to bring new business into my firm or my practice. But then I started thinking, I don't want to downplay them anymore. Like those can be my strengths. So I started talking to myself that I need to own them. I am Asian. I am a woman, and I am a mom, and I may look different. I may have different cultural background, but they can be strengths. So I started finding some common ground, and children can be a really good topic. That you can have with other men or male lawyers. They all have kids, most of them, or they have dogs and cats. So talking about your children is a really good conversation starter. And then talking about it, and then they may feel comfortable right away that you are in the equal, same footing. And then another thing is my cultural background of being Korean American. It has cultural competency is something that I highlight all the time. And at some point in any attorney's career, they may have some Korean clients or Asian clients, and they may remember me, and they do. And because I am not uncomfortable in my own character and traits, and I own them, I feel like that translates into confidence, and confidence is what attracts people. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's true. And I think everyone can do that. You know, I'm short and I have to just own the fact that I can't see over people's heads in big meetings. But, you know, you kind of have to get around that by saying, you know, I'm really tired of looking at everybody's belt. So I think I'm going to go over there and get something to eat or something like that because I'm just short. So that's how it goes. So let me ask you, Vedia, I think we agree that women network differently than men. Do you think it's an advantage?
I do. You do need to recognize the strengths and weaknesses of that. I think, you know, because we tend to relate so much more on a personal level, sometimes we may forget what we're there for, or that there are things to talk about that you know, are important to the business purpose. But you know, I think for me it's helpful, and I think for most people it's helpful to build a practice around things you're really interested in, because then it makes it a lot easier to connect around, you know, the things of interest to you. I mean, I wound up in an IP practice because of my, you know, background in design and love of things that are made and invented and created, and love of technology. And that gives me something to talk about, and the basis for a deeper relationship. But I think that's an important an important part of the way women relate, because I think women do tend to relate on a deeper personal level and come back to those things that are of interest to them, rather than the mere, as you said, transaction that they're involved in at the moment, or the basis for that immediate conversation, rather than the long-term relationship.
So yeah, I think that women have a natural inclination to want those relationships. So that's better. So let me ask you the last question, Brett, before Carol cuts us off. And that is, what kind of advantages do you see to working through women's organizations? I know you're on the board of the New Jersey Women Lawyers something.
Right, I'm on the executive board of the New Jersey Women Lawyers Association, which is a fabulous organization. I'm a trustee of the Women in the Profession section of the New Jersey State Bar Association. I'm in some business groups of women through Commerce and Industry Association, and then I'm on the ABA Women Rainmakers. I'm also involved with other organizations, and I get a lot of business. I mean, I do a lot of work with nonprofits, so a lot of my referrals come through working with accountants. And so I'm involved with some nonprofit groups and some accounting groups that focus on nonprofits. So I don't think that I limit it just to women's organizations, but I do honestly believe that women have come very far in our careers and in our projections in our profession, but we have not come as far as we can and will, and particularly in women in general, and especially women of color, of if I can surround myself or be engaged with qualified, competent women that I can refer matters to, and that I can trust that they will do the job that the client needs to be done, I would rather be able to refer to a woman than to a man. And, you know, I just, you know, as long as they're qualified, and as long as I can make that, I'd like to try and help, you know, lift people up and advance people to the extent I can. So that's being
a great place to stop before Carol.
Yes, so that's how you get to know them, through the women's groups.
Carol, I'm going to give it back to you and go back to the screen to follow along with you. So here we go.
Okay.
So
thank you, Carol, Brett, Yeon, and Vedia for that great information and the lively discussion. It's really great, and we've gotten some questions from our audience for the speakers. So I'm going to read a couple of those. We only have time for a couple, so if we didn't get to your question, for anyone, you can reach out directly to the panelists. We'll have their information for you later. So one of the questions for whoever wants to tackle this one is, how are you networking in the pandemic, and what are you doing differently?
Who wants to take it? Vedia.
Well, you know, I actually feel like I'm getting out more, if you can look at it in that way. You know, I think the flexibility offered by being able to participate in activities now enables me to do a lot more. And I think that I'm more inclined to participate in things than I was before, when I had to think about travel and, you know, other time commitments. So, but I think reaching out virtually is a big possibility. I chat a lot on Zoom and follow up with people afterwards. And there are all sorts of, you know, I think platforms like LinkedIn and Facebook are good for keeping track of details and information, but, you know, the activity really occurs, the relationships really occur offline. And so it's good to be able to make those connections. And today we have so many opportunities for finding people after we, you know, leave the event and following up with them.
Yeah, I want to add real quickly. I focus more on maintaining my pre-existing relationship now that I don't see them anymore in live events and things like that. So make sure that you are constantly in contact with all of your existing connections. And also, as Vedia mentioned, there's no geographic limitation anymore. And this is kind of a norm. So take advantage of some of the events that you were not able to go before. For example, if ABA conference was kind of too expensive to go, or attending multiple conferences in a year was too burdensome, now is the time. Everything is on Zoom and on online, so take advantage of those.
Yeah,
Great.
and give when you're on those. Communicate. You can network on a Zoom chat. So when I'm at a seminar, if I can put something in the chat and I put out resources, I can do that. And they see my name. And it's, you know, keeping your name out there, keeping the connections out there.
Terrific. Terrific. Everybody had such great answers that I don't think we have time to take any more of the questions. So we're just going to move to the next slide. Thank you. Here's the contact information for our panelists. So if you have a question that hasn't been answered, please feel free to reach out. And if you have any questions for Carol, you can reach out to her. That's her contact information. And we sincerely appreciate your interest in our webinar series. So please stay on the webinar to give us your feedback today. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about the webinar series. We hope you will join us again on March 17th of 2021 for our next webinar, which will feature Teddy Snyder, the author of Women Rainmakers Best Marketing Tips. And we wish you very successful rainmaking for the rest of 2020 and for 2021. And we hope to see you on March 17th for the next webinar. Thank you, and here's to your successful rainmaking. Have a good day, everyone.
Gotcha.
I would just like to say thank you to our Women Rainmakers Committee and everyone for attending our webinar today. Another thank you to Carol, Brett, Yeon, and Vedia for presenting today. We will now conclude the webinar.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Everyone.